The first time Daniel heard the whisper, he thought it was the wind. It was 3 in the morning, his apartment window half open, city lights flickering outside like distant fireflies. He was editing a research paper on sleep deprivation for the psychology department at his university. The glow from his laptop cast pale light over his desk. When he blinked, words swam across the screen. He rubbed his eyes, leaned back, and then the whisper came again, faint, wet, like a breath forming just behind his ear. Daniel. He turned, but no one was there. The air felt heavy, as if it had learned to watch. He laughed nervously and shook his head. Too much caffeine, he muttered. He'd been awake for almost 40 hours straight, running on energy drinks and anxiety. The whispering had to be his mind playing tricks. Ironic, given that his thesis was literally about how the human mind begins to eat itself when deprived of rest. But over the next few days, the whisper returned. It followed him. In the elevator, in the empty lecture hall, in the reflection of dark glass. Sometimes it called his name. Sometimes it only breathed, a wet pulse of syllables that almost made sense. You're tired. Let me help. He tried telling his best friend, Mia, about it. They met in the campus cafe, and she frowned as he explained. Dan, you need to sleep. Seriously. You're hallucinating, she said. I did sleep, he lied. An hour doesn't count. He forced a smile, but deep inside, the voice had already whispered something she couldn't hear. She doesn't understand. But I do. That night, Daniel dreamed for the first time in weeks. In his dream, he stood in a white room with no doors. In the center was a black figure, thin, almost liquid, like smoke given flesh. It tilted its head as if studying him. You're drowning in noise, it said. Let me quiet it. When he woke, his pillow was wet. The whisper hummed in his skull like static, comforting, familiar. He didn't tell anyone this time. Instead, he began to record himself sleeping. A psychological experiment, he claimed. He placed his phone on the nightstand, hit record, and fell asleep. The next morning, the recording showed something impossible. At 3:17 a.m., his sleeping body sat upright. His eyes opened, blank and milky. His mouth moved, but the voice wasn't his. It was deeper, stretched. I'm almost done eating. He deleted the video, convinced he'd edited it by mistake. But every night, it happened again. He started to look different, thinner, eyes sunken, movements slower, like he was learning to walk again. Mia noticed. Dan, you look awful, she said one day after class. You're losing it. He smiled faintly. No, I'm becoming something better. Excuse me. He leaned closer. Do you ever wonder what eats thoughts when we stop thinking? She backed away. You need help. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. The whisper purred inside his skull. Don't let her ruin us. Days bled into nights. Daniel stopped showing up to lectures. His apartment smelled of metal and decay. When Mia visited to check on him, the door was unlocked. She called out, Daniel? No answer. She stepped inside. The living room was dark except for the blue glow of a laptop. On the screen, dozens of open files, each one labeled Eater's Study. She clicked one. It was an audio recording. Daniel's voice, day 15. Subject reports hearing the entity even during waking hours. Subject feels a crawling behind the eyes. Subject loves it. The next file was a video. The camera showed Daniel staring at himself in the mirror. Who are you? He asked his reflection. The reflection smiled before he did. You invited me. Mia stumbled back. Her heartbeat thundered. She turned toward the hallway and froze. Footsteps. Slow dragging. Daniel, she whispered. Something moved in the shadows, tall, crooked, its limbs bending the wrong way. Its face looked almost like Daniel's, except the mouth was wider, too wide, splitting up toward the ears. It spoke in Daniel's voice, and the other one layered beneath it. You shouldn't have come. Mia bolted for the door, but the apartment seemed to twist, stretch. Every step she took, the hallway elongated, walls breathing, wallpaper pulsing like skin. She screamed and slammed into a wall that hadn't been there before. The voice whispered behind her ear, now you'll see what he saw. When she woke, she was lying in the university's medical ward. They said she'd been found unconscious outside Daniel's building, no sign of him anywhere. Police searched the apartment, but it was spotless. No smell, no files, no Daniel. They ruled him missing. 2 weeks later, Mia started hearing the whispers too. It began with her phone buzzing late at night. A voice message from an unknown number. She pressed play. "Sleep, Mia," Daniel's voice said softly. "It's easier if you stop fighting." Her breath caught. She threw the phone across the room, but the whisper continued, from the walls, from the drain in the sink, from her own thoughts. She started seeing him in mirrors, behind glass, in puddles, on rainy nights. Always smiling. Always watching. Desperate, she turned to Dr. Keller, one of the university's top psychiatrists. He listened carefully as she explained everything. "It's a shared psychosis," he said. "You and Daniel were both under stress. Sometimes the mind creates entities to process trauma." "No," she said. "It's real. It eats thoughts. I can feel it inside me." He smiled politely, writing notes. But when she left, Dr. Keller found something strange on his recorder. He always recorded patient sessions, but this time, her voice wasn't alone. Between her words, something whispered, "She's telling the truth." That night, Dr. Keller couldn't sleep. At exactly 3:17 a.m., he felt something cold press against his forehead. A whisper slid into his ear. "Now you understand." By the next month, the phenomenon spread quietly through the university. Students began reporting nightmares, a black figure standing over their beds, feeding on their thoughts, whispering in their voices. Some claimed they saw Daniel in the library at night, watching them from behind the glass walls. The media called it the Mind Eater case. Investigators found hundreds of audio files on the university servers, each recorded at 3:17 a.m. Each one began with silence, then a deep inhalation, then a voice repeating the same phrase, "I'm almost done eating." But no one could explain how the files appeared. They weren't uploaded by anyone logged in. They just existed. 3 months later, a psychology graduate named Aaron discovered an encrypted folder in the research archives. The label read, "Project Eater, Keller." Inside were notes, lab reports, and a single video file. He hesitated, then double-clicked. The footage was dated the week before Keller disappeared. The camera showed Keller's office, dimly lit. He sat at his desk, shaking. His eyes darted between the corners of the room as if watching something move. "I've made contact," he said to the camera. "It's not a hallucination. It's intelligent. It learns from us, feeds on cognition itself. The less you sleep, the more it can crawl inside." Daniel was the first, but not the last. He looked directly into the lens. "If anyone sees this, don't listen to the whispers. Don't stay awake. It lives in the gaps between thoughts." The lights flickered. Keller's face twitched, then distorted. His mouth stretching open as black smoke poured out. The whisper filled the room. "You shouldn't have watched." The feed cut to static. Aaron slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding. He tried to delete the file, but every time he pressed delete, the file multiplied. Dozens of copies appeared, each named Aaron.mp4. He yanked the power cord from the wall, but the screen stayed on. The video restarted automatically, but this time it wasn't Keller on the screen. It was him. And behind him, something smiled. The following week, campus security found Aaron's body slumped over his desk. The laptop was gone. On the wall, written in something black and dried, were the words, "Mind eaten. Thought consumed." The university shut down for investigation, citing psychological contagion. But whispers never stopped. Students reported hearing voices from their devices, from vents, from dreams. No one stayed awake after midnight anymore. Still, sometimes on sleepless nights, the internet pulses with strange uploads, videos with no origin, appearing across different platforms at exactly 3:17 a.m. Each one shows a person sitting in front of a camera, eyes glazed, repeating a single phrase in a dozen voices. "I'm almost done eating." Years later, the Mind Eater story became an urban legend, a creepypasta people whispered about online. But deep in a forgotten archive, someone rediscovered the original research paper Daniel had been working on. It was only half finished. The last line read, "When the mind starves, something else feeds." The file timestamp was 3:17 a.m. And beneath the signature, new words appeared, not typed, but etched into the document itself, like claw marks pressing through the digital page. "Thank you for the meal.